And then here is another order. And I believe there's gonna be an attorney on here for one.
Who's Sangamon County State's Attorney guest? Who's that?
I got this one on there, and I'm hoping the state's attorney out there.
Nabil, is that the trial?
Nabil, yep.
So who are these other folks?
Those are regular.
They're not here.
Oh.
They're not here. Let's do the trial so the trooper can get the hell and do some real work.
Can you go ahead and go in there?
Go ahead and admit the warrant. It's gotta go to bed.
Good morning, Mr. Is that Asharafa?
You got it. Good morning.
Morning.
Good, Your Honor.
You still want to have a bench trial today?
Yes,
Okay. Do you see the trooper in front of you on the screen?
I do.
All right. I did. I tried to anyway. Trying to get through the logistics here.
I got, yes, no worries, no worries. I understand, Your Honor.
Counsel, call your first witness. Can you hear me, Haley? I cannot. Unmute yourself. Can you hear me, Haley?
I can. Can you hear me?
Very loud.
It's very loud.
It sounds like you're on a tugboat.
Firework. So you have to do it good.
Okay.
I can just sit here and ask questions. State would call Trooper Kaiser to the stand.
Trooper, raise your right hand for me. Testimony you're about to give should be the truth?
Yes, sir.
All right, go right ahead. And sir, can you hear us, everybody?
I can hear you, Your Honor.
All
Yes.
right, perfect. Go right ahead, counsel.
Can you please state your name?
Trooper Grant Kaiser,
And Trooper Kaiser, where are you currently employed?
the Illinois State Police,
How long have you been so employed?
approximately 3 years.
And what kind of training did you have to undergo in order to become a trooper?
I went to the ISP Academy for 6 months.
And did you receive training in LiDAR and speeding violations and traffic stops?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, turning your attention to November 14th of 2021, were you on duty that day?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was your assignment that day?
I was working a special detail for patrolling the interstate.
And at approximately 9:04 p.m., where were you located?
I was located on I-55 around milepost 85.
And were you stationary or were you moving?
I was stationary in the center median.
In what direction were you facing?
I was facing northbound, watching traffic from the 85 go northbound.
And while you were on I-55, did you observe a 2019 black Mercedes-Benz?
Yes, ma'am.
And what drew your attention to that vehicle?
I utilized my LiDAR system and pointed it at the black passenger car as it was moving at a high rate of speed in the left lane.
And was your LiDAR device working properly that day?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you ensure that before your shift started that it was working properly?
Yes, ma'am.
How did you do so?
It calibrates internally when I turn it on.
And did you calibrate it prior to this traffic stop?
I'm not trained to calibrate it. I'm just trained to operate it.
And so you said you saw a 2019 black Mercedes-Benz on your LiDAR. What speed was it going?
I had the black utility vehicle at 87 miles per hour at approximately 859 feet.
And what mile or speed limit is posted where you were at?
70 miles per hour.
And are those signs visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything that would block or obstruct that view from passing cars?
No, ma'am.
And based on your training and experience, did a traffic violation occur?
Yes, ma'am.
And how did you come to that determination?
By utilizing my LiDAR and seeing the speed on the LiDAR,
And what speed did it show?
87 miles per hour.
And what violation, based on your observation, had occurred?
Speed violation.
And during your observation of that 2019 black Mercedes Benz, was there anything obstructing your view?
No, ma'am.
Did you perform a traffic stop on that vehicle?
Yes, ma'am.
And after you initiated that traffic stop, did you come in contact with the driver?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you see that driver in this room?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you please just point to him and describe an article of clothing?
The individual on the street to the left, he's wearing a face mask during the traffic stop, but it was him and his wife.
I just asked if the court take recognize that the officer has identified the individual on the screen as the driver he was over.
Yes.
And did all these events occur in Sangamon County?
Yes, ma'am.
No further questions.
All righty, Mr. Asharafa, if you have any questions for the trooper, now's the time. Go right ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you so much, Your Honor, and thank you to the trooper and also everyone here. So, Your Honor, I have a set of questions, but I'm going to get to a point eventually at the end of these set of questions.
Take your time.
All right, thank you so much. So thank you for explaining the radar. And one thing when requested regarding calibration, just wanted to ask, was it calibrated by a certified technician? And if so, what date was it calibrated?
Yes, sir. It was calibrated. I have to turn it in. I do not have that sheet on me, but I can provide that to you if necessary.
Do you know when it's supposed to be calibrated by? Every how often is it supposed to be calibrated?
I would have to double check my policy.
Got it. And you mentioned that you checked the LiDAR before and after your work shift. I believe you, did you yourself check the LiDAR?
Yes, by turning it on, it runs an internal calibration.
All right. And if so, did you measure the distance, the delta distance or a distance? Because typically there's a calibration check and it reports the delta distance.
I don't understand what you're asking.
Okay. All right. All right. Just Your Honor, just so LiDAR typically.
Well, let me do it this way.
Oh.
You can't number things here.
Got it.
You're not under oath, so you can't testify. And then number two, if you are about to give expert testimony with respect to LiDAR, you have to be qualified and recognized by the court and counsel as such. Do you understand?
I do understand. And what would it take for that qualification to be made?
You would have to give us your background. I'm not telling you that you need to produce a CV.
Got it.
But you would have to prove to the court and to counsel for the state that you are an expert in this area.
Got it. So, Your Honor, I graduated at UCLA with a PhD in 2015 in computer science. I also have a bachelor's and a master's in engineering. I'm also a professor of computer science as well, and engineering. So, electrical and computer engineering.
But specifically,
yes,
your day-to-day training with respect to your advanced degrees
Yeah, so I build
In the
yeah,
field
so
LiDAR?
So I build wearable sensors. I also worked in the defense industry for about 8 years, where I focused quite a bit on radar sensors as well. And I worked at Toyon in Santa Barbara for about 8 years as a defense contractor.
Your Honor, just where I believe that you're using LiDAR.
Yes, I said LiDAR.
Well, let's do it this way. You're not under oath yet. This
Okay.
is not the opportunity at this stage to make a statement. So why don't you?
Okay, should I continue my questions then?
Absolutely.
Okay, got it. All right. So, so another question I had regarding the, I wanted to ask you, how many vehicles were around me at the time?
I do not recall.
Okay.
Mr. El-Sharafa, I'm going to put you back in the waiting room real quick. I'm going to take care of one more Zoom. A lawyer has been here for 15 minutes. Ours is going to be a little lengthy, so I'm going to put you back in the waiting room.
Okay.
And we'll be right back with you, okay?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Trooper, I got to get this other guy out of here.
You're good. You're good. I believe he is here for Smart Tech. So, no prepaid and a CL amount. And we do have negotiated dispositions in this case as well.
How's that?
Perfect. Mr. Epton, good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor.
All right, you guys have this worked out, correct? So what's the disposition?
I'm sorry.
It's a $1,000 fine and conviction on the overweight ticket, and we would then dismiss per plea the Class A.
That's the no fee paid?
Correct.
Is that your understanding, counsel?
That is, Your Honor.
All right, so I'm going to show a dismissal per plea, no fee paid, and then guilty on the CDL, $1,000 fine. And counsel, when can your client pay that?
Judge, if you would, I believe it'll be paid within the next week, but if you would give it a 1 month or even a 2-month date just to be safe.
Yeah, June 1st, counsel.
June 1st, okay? And I believe I had the instructions that they can do that online.
Yeah, right under my picture, paytrafficfine.org.
Oh, yes, Mr. Counsel gave it to me earlier, paytrafficfine.org. We will take care of that. We appreciate the consideration of the court and counsel for the state.
Have a great day, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Mr. El-Sharafa, you can continue with your questioning.
All right. So you mentioned that, thank you, Your Honor. So you mentioned that you do not recall how many vehicles were around me. Do you recall whether I overtook any other vehicles?
I do not recall.
Okay. And if you can explain to me how you were, and to the court, how you were oriented when using the LiDAR?
Yes, I was parked perpendicular to I-55, and I had both my window down using my LiDAR through my passenger window.
Was it safe for you to be perpendicular?
Yes, I was in the center median turnaround.
And were there other vehicles behind you?
No, the turnaround is just for authorized vehicles only.
Got it. Okay. All right. And I believe those are my questions, Your Honor.
All right, so let's do it this way. Thank you very much. Counsel for the state, do you have any follow-up?
Just a few.
Go right ahead.
Trooper, can you please just briefly explain how LiDAR works?
LiDAR is utilized as a straight out and back beam, and you point it individually at one vehicle, and it returns the speed and distance of that vehicle.
And how do you know that you specifically pointed it at the 2019 Mercedes-Benz?
There is a window at the top of the LiDAR that you look through, and it gives almost a crosshair that you point at one individual car.
No further questions.
Do you have any follow-up based on that, Mr. Ashrafa?
No, I do have though. I just thought I would explain my logic after the questions. I don't know if when I can make the statement. Also wanted to say something about LiDAR if you would allow me to.
Yeah, we can do that. So any other witnesses, counsel for the state?
No, state address.
State rep. All right, Mr. Ashrafa, why don't you raise your right hand for me? Testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
Yes, the truth.
All right, go right ahead. Tell me what happened.
All right. So, Your Honor, I'm typically a careful driver. I haven't had tickets since 2009. My aunt was dying in St. Louis when we were driving on our way back from St. Louis to Chicago. My wife and two girls were driving. I had my two babies, my 1-year-old and 3-year-old in the back, and we were driving calmly, and the girls were asleep in the back. There were two vehicles ahead of me, and I was following the speed limit, and quite a few vehicles were around me. It was 9 p.m. and it was a busy time. All of a sudden, the police officer, we were sort of oriented in opposite directions. So I'm going one direction, he was oriented the other direction. All of a sudden, I see him turn around, right, and makes a U-turn. And a vehicle was behind him at the time. So I did not overtake any other vehicles around me. And so I'm a bit confused as to, there is a huge, the officer does not recall how many vehicles were around me, but there were quite a few. And there is a strong chance that he might have pointed at, especially in the dark, at another vehicle. He does not recall checking the LiDAR before and after. So he does recall, calibrating it. However, if I may say something about LiDAR, LiDAR uses laser light and reads the difference in transmitted light frequency and returned light frequency, and it converts this change in frequency to speed.
Your Honor, I am going to object. I don't think he's laid adequate foundation for. Sounds like he's giving expert opinion. I just don't know if he's laid that.
Mr. Al-Sharafa, here is a point of difficulty that we're at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen a CV from you. We don't have a stipulation from the state. And again, this court recognizes your advanced degrees, and congratulations to where you are in your life with respect to your advanced degrees and being a professor. But at this point, absent an agreement or a stipulation by the state, haven't seen any curriculum vitae with respect to your studies and your courses throughout where you are now. I'm unable at this point to declare that you are an expert witness in this area. Therefore, I cannot allow this testimony. Do you understand?
I do, and there's no way I can, at this time, I can show you my CV or prove to you that I'm considered by the, I'm fully funded by the U.S. government, and so I'm just sort of wondering what.
I mean, I'm not trying to discount any of that. Yeah. I respect all of that,
right.
But just with respect to this pigeonhole area, very minute, this narrow focus of LiDAR specific testimony. Do you have any documentation for your CV that would allow me to declare you an expert with respect to this very narrow issue?
I guess I mean, I design wearable technology with multiple sensing modalities. So it's not, I mean, LiDAR light is something I've used so my first grant in 2004 in using agent intelligent technologies, which was funded by the Army, was using radar and LiDAR. So I guess I can show you my CV if you'd like. Now, whether it'll actually say LiDAR specifically, that might not be the case. So.
And that is the point of difficulty for the court at this point. With my apologies, okay?
Okay, but I just want to say one thing. So the officer, if I can continue my just narrative, the officer was in motion, and if it is not possible that he was stationary in the middle of the highway, it would be unsafe because there were a lot of vehicles coming opposite direction. If he was in motion, then we can't use the reading of the LiDAR. And he also does not report the delta distance or I mean, when you calibrate, there's a calibration check and it gives you a number to tell you if it's considered functioning properly. And he did not report any number. So to me, it's very hard for me to believe, especially with my wife next to me, that I was actually speeding. So this is, and based on the information that he provided me regarding the LiDAR, doesn't tell me that he doesn't know whether it was properly checked, what date, because typically it has to be certified by a technician every 60 days. He doesn't know when it was checked, and is not reporting any measured distance or delta distance regarding calibration. So I have a lot of issues with regards to the validity of the citation that he made.
And again, I agree with you. I mean, all this information has to be readily available to you. The trooper said he did not have it. That concerns me. Ms. Black, do you have any questions for the gentleman?
No.
Okay. Trooper still here?
Yes.
I would love to say something if I can, Your Honor.
Well, you're going to have to be directed by counsel for the state. So Mr. Al-Sharafa has rested. State wants to recall the trooper.
We would.
The trooper is still under oath, Mr. Al-Sharafa, and listen to these questions, and then I'll turn him over to you for follow-up questions, okay?
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
Counsel?
Trooper, is there anything else you'd like to tell the court?
Yes, I would like to state that I was not in motion. I was parked at a turnaround, so it's in the center median, safe, away from traffic. And I did have just my parking lights on, so I wouldn't have been visible to him approaching me. And that is why the LiDAR was used, is because it cannot be used while in motion. So I was stationary, perpendicular, looking out my passenger window towards northbound traffic.
And you were able to get a clear reading on the LiDAR device.
Yes, ma'am.
Right, and you would not have been able to do that if you were moving.
Correct, ma'am.
No further questions.
Do you have any questions, any follow-up, Mr. Al-Sharafa, based on this?
And I do, Your Honor, thank you. And you do not recall how many vehicles were around me?
I do not, sir.
All right. And you do mention that it was dark. Do you know how to?
I apologize for interrupting you. Continue, sir.
All right. Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Trooper, can you walk me through this calibration again and for your office policies? I mean, you testified that there is an internal calibration check. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor. When you turn on the LiDAR, it runs an internal calibration itself. And as he was saying, he might have done work with other LiDARs, but mine does not require a delta.
Do you have any questions, Mr. Al-Sharafa, based on that of the trooper?
So you mentioned that you do not know the date that it was a certified technician calibrated this device.
I do not have the date on me, but I can get that for you.
And did you did you check the LiDAR before and after your work shift?
Can you explain what you mean by checked?
So did you calibrate right before and after the work shift, right before you used it on me?
So I'm not,
or allegedly on me.
I'm not certified to calibrate the LiDAR. I'm only certified to operate it. So it runs the internal check itself when it's turned on, and I turn it on and off at the beginning and the end of my shift.
So you did not check LiDAR before and after your work shift. You just turn it on and off.
And by, what do you mean by check, sir?
So typically, you're prior to using it, you're supposed to check to do a calibration check. So just like you said, typically there's a calibration check that's performed before and after the shift. Even if the technician calibrated it, typically you're supposed to check to make sure it's functional. Otherwise, it's supposed to be placed out of service and sent to the scientific lab for repair. So how do you know? I guess my question is, how do you know that the LiDAR was functional?
Your Honor,
You can ask that
Well, like I said earlier, I can't calibrate it. I'm not certified to calibrate it. Like you stated earlier, I can get you the dates that I turn it in to get calibrated, but I just don't have them on me at this time. But I'm only certified to operate the LiDAR.
And so my question is, how do you know that the LiDAR was working?
When I turn it on, it runs its internal calibration, and if returned an error or anything would show on the screen. And that did not occur that day.
Got it. And so you did not calibrate it. However, you're saying that there was no check to know if it required if there were any errors. I have no more questions, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I have a follow-up question.
Go ahead.
You said runs an internal check when you turn it on, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so with that, and it would show an error message if it wasn't working properly.
Correct.
And you did not see that on the day of November 14th.
Correct.
So it was working properly.
Yes, ma'am.
No further questions.
Mr. Al-Sharafa, out of fairness, still your witness. Yeah, go ahead.
What time did you check the LiDAR that day?
When I started my shift that morning and turned on the LiDAR.
Okay, so you merely turned on the LiDAR. You did not you did not perform a calibration, and you do not know when the calibration was performed.
Like I stated earlier, sir, I cannot calibrate it. I'm not certified to calibrate the LiDAR. I'm only certified to operate it.
And you do not know when it was calibrated?
I do not know at this time. I can get you that date and the person that calibrated it.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Potts, do you usually have calibration records for these LiDARs? And if not, why?
In hand, no.
But is that something that is due if the gentleman requested discovery? That would be forthcoming to him for that request, right?
If he had requested discovery, yes.
At this point, I have questions too with respect to that calibration. So you're good to go, Mr. Asharari, okay?
All right.
All right, so.
Well, am I in the waiting room or?
No, the state did not meet their burden on this. You're free to go. It's dismissed, okay?
Thank you so much, Your Honor.
You're very welcome.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
bye-bye. Yep.
I don't think